we invited a Smart Notebook trainer to come out to Allen ISD and show us some new features of Smart Notebook 17.
We're going to look at, try and showcase the differences, which a lot of them have to do with Smart Labs, so we'll start there and kind of work our way through some of the other things that are different as well. I'm going to go through a couple of things really quickly right off the bat. So this is one of the labs that I love the best. It's called Shout It Out. It can be used so universally. You have to, for the labs, you have to have an account with Smart. It's free. This allows you to have one number that's associated with you, which will allow you to be using Smart Learning Suite online, have your kids play these interactive games, all sorts of things. So the first thing you need, so the teacher would go to account and sign in. It's going to kick you to a web browser. If it doesn't kick you to a web browser, then it usually is just open your web browser from the bottom. It's usually there. And you're not signing in, you're going to create an account down here. All right, the teachers will know they're signed in because when they have a lab open, they'll actually have a number that's attached to them. So if you guys went ahead and created your account right now, you'll have a different number than my number. And the number every teacher will have their own number, so they can make a big poster of it, they can hang it in their classrooms, it's theirs, they own it. You can see here I have some students that were already in the class from earlier. So when I had them share their goal from earlier, it was all right here. I knew which students were in. You can remove students. So if you have teachers that are working with multiple classes, things like that, that could be bulky, or middle school teachers, high school teachers. So you just hit remove students. I'm going to go ahead and have you guys do this just so you can see what it looks like from the student's perspective. So the first thing you want to do is you need to go to a web browser, any web browser. You can use your phone or the computer and go to classlab.com. You're going to enter this number, no space. They chunked it to make it easier for the kids to see the numbers and type them in. So Renee's already in. When you join, you'll see that you see an hourglass, and that's it. You won't see anything else until the teacher starts the activity, which is nice. So the kids can't start doing things without the teacher's permission. All right, so now I have both of you. I'm going to go ahead and start the activity. And you're just going to share what your goal of today is. So what do you hope to get out of today? The nice thing about Shout It Out is you can either shout out text or images. You have to make the decision beforehand, though. You can't switch back and forth. But creating a Shout It Out takes 4 clicks, that fast. So we'll actually model making one. All right, all good answers. So one of the things that notice that right now we can see who contributed what piece of information. So one of the things that I know, especially with the older kids, that if you have them share something like, share with me one thing that you don't understand, or share something that's bothering you about the story that we read, or some things like that, they don't always want to have their name attached because that's intimidating, or they're worried about being judged. So you can turn off the names. So instead they're symbols. As the teacher, though, you can still match the symbol to the person in there that contributed it. So you can let the kids know, I know who's sharing, even though it looks anonymous on here, which is that accountability piece, especially for those kiddos that like to test the limits a little bit. And you can have this go away, so you don't have to have that there. The nice thing about these is they can be moved around, so you can group and sort as well. So one of the things I do with Shout It Out is really letting the kids build their own content. You know, shout out some nouns and some verbs. Well, if they shout them out, then you can sort in different ways. Or one thing I did with first graders is I had them shout out. You can also make categories. So I had them shout out their first and last name, and then I had them shout out an equation to go with their name, and then the kids, as their activity, they had to sort and put the names and the equations together. So you do have the ability to control and move things around. The other nice thing is if you click on them, they make them bigger, and you can flick through them through these arrows down in the corner. So it makes it nice for the students. So let's look at how you would go about building a smart lab, as shouted out. So we have this little alien guy right up here. I'm going to click to add a new page so I can start fresh. Feel free to do this right along with me. Then I'm going to click the Smart Lab alien guy. And it's going to pop up. We have about 11 labs. You don't have to watch the video, I'm not going to. And one of them, like I said, is Shout It Out. And I feel like Shout It Out is a really great one, very powerful for the kids to use and teachers as well. So you can see you have choices between randomize, which is what we were doing earlier, just throwing up our ideas, or you could do categories. So for instance, I could do nouns, verbs, adjectives, or I could do a KWL chart, or I could do, like I said, I did names and equations, whatever you can think of, anything that you would want to share a lot of content with, that's how this can be used. So let's say I was doing KWL chart. I can enter KW and L. Over here, I can choose text or images. So with KWL, I'm probably going to want to do text because I want to know what they know and what they want to know, and then hopefully we'll add to it later with what they've learned. But let's say one of the things that you could do is you could have your kids, for images, you could have them walking around the school taking pictures of equilateral triangles that they see and shouting them back out here. So then when you come back, you have all these different examples from the building itself. Or I would have my kids, especially if they had access to iPads, you know, if they're doing an assignment at their desk, they can take a picture of their assignment, they can shout it out. We can see everyone's all at once. I can highlight some as we go around. So you can choose text or images. You can choose how many times a student can contribute an idea. So depending on whether you want to brainstorm, you're going to want a lot of ideas, versus if you're doing like an exit ticket, maybe only one. And you get to choose, and then you can choose show or hide. Then you hit finish. This will show you the difference of how it looks on a KWL versus the one where we were sharing before. In this one with the regular, where it's just no categories, it's not going to have any words. So what I did was just added a text box. So your teachers can add a text box. You can write on here, so you can actually use the pen and write on here as well. So I could circle things. So you do have control over the screen as well on the lab itself.
On the category one, when the student gives feedback, do they pick which category it's in, or just post it and then as a class?
Let me show you. So tell me what you already know about the smart board and what you want to know about the smart board. So I'm going to go ahead and start the activity. It's going to kick you out of the previous one and add you this one. And you're going to see at the bottom, you have a place to choose which category. So share one thing that you think you already know about notebook software, and then put something you want to know, just so you can see the difference as the two activities. So we're going to find out how long Smart records, right? You can move this so it goes away. One of the things that I like about this as well is as we're going through, so if we find the answer to how long does Smart record, I can actually just move that over to the Learn side to showcase that we're moving in that direction as well. So the freedom to move between categories is nice as well. Shout it out, lots of applications for the classroom for sure. All right, so let's answer one of these right off the bat. So how is it saved and shared among teachers? So one of the new features about Notebook 17 I really like, because notebook files, depending on what you're doing, if I'm just making it, like for instance, a KWL chart, I made one and I just lived on my computer. It was one page, that's it. So that's not very big and bulky, but I just pulled it up and I would just write hurricanes or whatever it was our topic was, right? But if you're building something on a unit where you're going to have much more content, those files can get bulky. So one of the best things about Notebook 17 is if you go, you have to save your file just like you normally do. So save it somewhere, file save as. But when you want to share it with someone, we have a new feature called Share. So if you go to File, Share, you have two options. One is Share to Board, and one is Share using a link. What we want to focus on is Share using a link. So it will create an actual link you put in a web browser, and then you can email it out.
After you create a link for your Smart Notebook file, you can then Save those links with a short description in a Word document. That document can be saved on the share drive for everyone in your grade level to have access to the files.
And at the link, all that would do is if I was here, I would paste the link in here, and it's going to automatically put it download it just like it did earlier. So if you share with a link to someone, download it, it's theirs, and they can make changes, they can make adjustments, and it won't impact the other teacher. It's not public, it's for you guys. The only people that have access are the people they physically give access to. Yes. So as long as they keep it within their team, yeah, they're fine. In Smart Labs, we have 11 different labs that are available for the teachers. This gives a little bit of information about each lab, but what I really love that I think you guys might find useful, and one of the things I really talk to teachers about is leveling up, because we don't want teachers to stay in the lower levels of blooms. We really want them moving up, right? So we've created this document that will help them do that. So one of the things about this document is it actually lays out for each lab exactly the specific details. So this can be, the fill in the blanks can be played on a board or devices. Its question type is fill in the blank. You can check answers immediately or at the end, or you can choose not to check the answers. So it gives you all those details. You get 300 characters, you get 10 blanks, and it does it in support pictures. So for each of the labs, it gives you kind of the details. But over here, it also gives you ideas of how to use the lab, but then how to level up the lab. So you're moving up higher on the Bloom's taxonomy, and we included those blooms here as well to help the teachers understand what that might look like. I also have right here a link to how-to videos. So each of the videos for every lab is about 2 minutes. They're super short, so if a teacher can do a really quick refresher and not have to figure it all out themselves. So for instance, when we're talking about leveling up, so one of the things I talk about is I created this lab. Notice that this is called super sort, where you can sort words into different categories. In this situation, I didn't give the category names. And I was doing this with teachers, of course. So I was having the teachers evaluate and think about what words do they think which words seem to go together, which seem to be opposite. And then based on that information, what might the category names be? So going on that, what do you guys think? Okay, so teacher directed. So I'm gonna write teacher directed. Was one of your teacher directed? And your other one was, what'd you say? Student choice? Okay. Student choice. Okay, so now the thing is here, we don't know for sure which category, whether we have the categories in the right place, right? We think these are terms that might make sense here. And every place I go, I can have different answers, but they're sort of still along the same route. So if I say, okay, choice, where do you think choice would go? So here, it kicked it back out. Easy enough. I think I have these categories just backwards. I can flip these over. So now, choice is here. Where do you think creativity valued? Student. So you can see now that it works. So I could have done something like nouns and verbs, or I could, very simplistic where I am on the remember of blooms. And those things are important too, of course they are. But we also want teachers to be thinking a little further, like how else can we get kids thinking and having to evaluate some of the content before making a decision without just rote doing it. So that's one way. Another way is this one, which is a rank order. So you can rank order anything. You can rank order equations, you can rank order the planets from the distance from the sun, all of those different things. And you can, those all have right or wrong answers. But you could also do more of an opinion thing like this one. So if you were thinking about students that are graduating from Allen ISD and going out into the real world, which of these skills do you feel is the most important to the least important? So kind of a tough one. Okay, so I love that, and I always think when someone tells me knowledge should be down here, it always tells me something good about them as a teacher, right? Because I mean it, because honestly, because I think, and we've had this discussion, because if we're teachers, why do we think knowledge is least important? So why would that be? Why would I think Why would I agree with you that I think knowledge we don't
learners, not like, yeah.
Right, so just thinking about Bloom's in general, but also thinking about what do we carry in our pocket.
Right.
We have computers in our pockets. If I want to prove that my husband is absolutely wrong about something, I can do it, right, in real time. So the kids have access to unlimited knowledge that we never had access to. Of course, we need to teach them knowledge things as well, but when we're looking long term, I can see knowledge as being lower down. Obviously, all of these are important. We're not saying they're not important, just lower. So what would you say if knowledge is lower? What would you say is one of the higher ones?
Collaborative or critical thinking.
Critical thinking, collaborative skills. So this activity is great, and it's also moving up Bloom's because you're having to have the discussion, right? You're having to debate and discuss, and you have to have reasoning behind why you're putting things in certain places. And so notice in this one, it's not having it grade it or tell me I'm right or wrong. And I've set it up that way so that it doesn't tell me, because I really want this to lead to a good discussion where we're building our kids' thinking skills. But if it was something that needed to have right or wrong answers, the way that you can always change a smart lab is that there's always a pencil right here in the corner. And if I click on the pencil, I can choose to have it check instantly, or I can have it choose at the end after I filled in all the answers. So if I choose win instantly, and I can choose my background here, so if I wanted to change it, I could. Now if I put it in, that one was right, it'll kick it back out.
Or you get labels written in there.
Yeah, I could come in right here and I could change this, and it would change it instantly over here.
You know what I'm saying? Like, most importantly.
Oh yeah, I should be able to, I can just like that.
Oh, right on the right. Yeah, no,
Ranking labels.
Oh yes, you can change those too. Yes, all right, yes. So if you were, depending on what, right, you could do least important to most important, or depending on what your task is. You can make those changes. So this one does have images. You cannot do both. You can choose either words or images. With images, we would do a lot with like events from a story, things like that, because you could take pictures and put those. They can put those in order as well. This is that you can actually save your content as well, so that you don't have to rebuild it over and over again. So if you create a list, say a nouns list or a verbs list, and you want to use it with a matching, with a sorting, with a rank order, once you've created it and you've saved it, it's yours. You can always add it to it. So I can hit save right here, and I can name this graduation. And now I have that content available for other labs that I do. So if I click this area right here, the plus, you can see here's that content that I have added. Mm-hmm.
Is that tied to your account?
It's tied to my account, yes. So yeah, I love the fact that you can save the content, because that's really helpful. It would prompt you, like if you try and make a lab and you're not signed in, it will prompt you to sign in. So Monster Quiz is another lab that I really like. The kids really like it. You're gonna have to go through it with me. It's gonna be kind of a small team, so I'm gonna go ahead. So the thing about Monster Quiz, this is the only one where you cannot, once you start the activity, a kid cannot join. So like with the other labs, the kids can join even after the fact. So in my classroom, if you're not logged in, you get it old-fashioned way, and the kids learn to log in quickly. And they usually want to with Monster Quiz. You can, if say a student walks in last minute and you haven't really gotten started, you can go out and start it back up. But usually I just teach the kids that they have to be ready when we're ready. So let's see. So we have Crystal, okay, Crystal, name, Bonnie, and who? That's right.
I was distracted by my M&Ms.
All right, so I'm going to start the quiz. I'm going to start a new activity. In this instance, it throws the names up here, and then I have to divide you guys into teams. So we have 4 students, so I'm going to do 2 teams. The nice thing is it automatically sorts your kids into teams, but then if you notice that Kelly and Crystal are not good partners,
You must know us.
you can flip names around, or if all of your high achievers went in one group or all your strugglers went in another group, you can easily move them around, and the kids don't even have to know why you moved them. And then now I'm going to start the quiz. Nope. You're working independently, but together as well. So one of the things I tell the kids is, good job, Bonnie Renee. On Monster Quiz, if you get an answer wrong, it shakes. See, Lava Slinger just missed one. If you get an answer right, Bonnie, good job. You get it'll have a little check mark.
I bet I've got that from across than any of you. But I don't know any of these answers.
And you can see down here how people are doing, how the team's doing. So and the questions come back around, so they haunt you if you get one wrong. And some kids are gonna finish more quickly. If
That one is stretching about. I can actually breathe through your skin as well.
Hopefully, right by the fourth time, your students are always getting them right. So the Lava Slingers won. But I try and get, like, when one student finishes, I'll say, well, you need to start cheering on your team, like, to get them excited and motivated and to build that excitement. So I'm going to go ahead and end the quiz.
I'm still getting them wrong.
I said hopefully by the fourth time, right? So the nice thing about this is that you have the review.
We put in
Yeah.
the questions.
Yeah, you put in the questions. Yeah, so I'm going to show you something about that. So this tells me the time, all of that, but the thing I really find power is the class review. So here I can quickly look and see, like, do I need to revisit number 2? No, everyone knows that frogs absorb water through their skin, or at least the 4 of y'all do.
I can prove it.
Yeah. So, but as a teacher, I can quickly see if there's some confusion, and I can talk to my kids about it right here, real time, before they leave my classroom, right? Or I could use this as a pre-assessment and see where they're coming from and decide whether I need to make adjustments of my teaching based on if, I'm not going to cover some things that they already really get, for instance, or I can just use it as a fun review, getting ready for a test that's upcoming, things like that. So it gives me more of a general how my kids are doing as a whole group. So here, I'm going to click that pencil again where we would edit the activity. Yep. Okay, so when we edit the activity, I can choose to add more questions if I want. I have these 5 questions. Let's say I start with these 5 during like my first week of the unit. So these are new things that we just covered. But now I've been in the unit for 3 weeks, and I need to do a summative or a formative assessment or summative assessment to see where they are now. But I don't want to have to redo these questions because I think these questions are still good. I just want to add more questions based on the new content that we've covered. So again, I can save my content. And I can hit next, and I can hit finish. Okay. Now, one of the tools that I really like, one of our labs that I really enjoy, that I think teachers, especially middle school teachers, but and high school teachers, but all teachers, I'm going to click the plus button. We have a lab called Smart Response 2. You can find it actually by clicking on Smart Lab, or a lot of times it's already on your toolbar because it's one that I feel is pretty powerful. So with Response 2, you can have lots of different questions. So with Monster Quiz, you could only do multiple choice or true false. But with Response 2, you have multiple choice, true false, multiple answer, polls, short answers, opinions, things like that. So I know, for instance, I want to use the 5 questions I've already created. I don't want to create those 5. So I'm going to click load. I'm going to click on my frog quiz, and I'm going to load it. So here are those questions, but those aren't all the questions I want to cover. So I'm going to hit previous, and now I can add a question. So I can add, do you like frogs? I'm going to make that an opinion question, and I'm going to say yes or no. And the other nice thing about the Smart Response is that you can add images. So like if you're doing a math test or a science test and you need to have like a graph or some kind of image for them to look at as well, you can have the image and you can have the question side by side. And so I can add another question, however many questions I need to add, and then I can hit next. and I can give it a title. I can give it instructions. Oh, I also would want to save, right? Because say this is my final quiz or my test. So I could say frog unit test. In Smart Response 2, you have multiple answer. You can choose all different kinds of questions. You can't shuffle them so that they're like where every computer has a different random. No. And also know that when you're doing your questions, you have to mark which one is right. It won't randomly do that. So then I just hit next, and I can hit finish. So what's great about this is it will actually grade the quizzes for you for each student, give you a grade, show you exactly what questions they got right, which questions they got wrong, things like that. So I'm going to have you guys do the questions really quickly just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to start the activity. That's right, get some wrong on purpose, on purpose. Now, one of the things you notice that it's telling you where the class is percentage-wise, which can be distracting for the kids. And you also have the option of choosing to see what the questions are and how the kids are progressing there. For some of those students that are going to feel motivated by finishing fast because they see other people finishing, you might not want that visible to them. So you can use the screen shade, and it will cover that for them so they don't have access to that. You can click, every time you click on the screen shade, it changes colors. So if you don't like the dark gray, it changes that. So now I'm going to end the test. And right down here, see how it says export results? So I can actually go through and still get like a picture of my whole class through each question. But I can click on export results. And when I do that, it automatically saves a spreadsheet to my desktop. I can change the name if I want. I'm not going to. It does it by date and time right now. So now, when I go to, when I get there, so here's the spreadsheet right here. So if I open that, it has exactly how each of you did. So Crystal got 80%. She got 4 correct, 1 wrong. It shows what her answers are. Then down here, so they can add these to their grade book. Down here, they also have just the specific questions right here if you want to look, which is really nice. And it was 1 click to do that, right? Which is great. Exactly. So that's why I feel like the Smart Response is really powerful for teachers to use with their students to get good feedback and to see exactly how each student's doing. And I used this for doing a differentiating group. So I would give the kids, say, like 2 questions, and if you got both questions right, you were in one group. If you got 1 and 1, you were in my instructional group, and if you missed 2, you were in the group that I needed to work with, right? So I could quickly change how which kids I was working with on which tasks too. So it can be a quick pre-assessment also. Take one of your questions a couple of your questions that you're gonna have on your post-test, throw them on your up here, and have that as your pre-assessment for making groups. Another new add-on with Smart Notebook is we can add YouTube videos, which is great because it will take all of the chat and the suggested videos, all of that away, nice and clean. So on your side right here, you see the puzzle piece, that's your add-ons. And you can do this right with me. I'm gonna go back here. I can choose YouTube, and I can search. So let's say I was looking for information about frogs. So I can preview to make sure it's the video I'm looking for by just clicking here. Let's say that's the right one. I click on it, and I can click Add Video. And it's here. And it's clean, nothing around it. When it's done, it's done. It's not going to show you anything else. Then you can also have your questions or things you want them to think about typed out to the side so they can kind of be watching the video and seeing what you want them to focus on as well at the same time. So, and going back to your question about images and copyright too, one of the things that Smart also has now is in that same add-ons, you have an image web search. So if I search for frogs, and I click here, I drag it over, you're going to see it has a little world right here. And that world it'll take you to that site. So you're already, and then they're finding pictures that you're allowed to use as well. However, if you need your students to see that image and you're not worried about copyright because you're only using it in your classroom and you don't want your kids accidentally clicking on here, you can click on the down arrow and click on link, and you can remove the link, and then it goes away. So you do have that option as well, because I know in the classroom a lot of times I don't want them to be going to that site, but if I was trying to share it more universally, then maybe I need to make sure I'm covering my bases as well. While we're on images, there's two tools to images that I really like. So one, I'm going to go back to my puzzle piece, my add-ons, and this time I'm going to look for a clip art of a frog. So notice this has that white box that I hate because I want to just see the frog. So when I click on the frog and I click that down arrow, one of the options is set image transparency. And if I click on that, now I can click and the white goes away, and now I just have my frog, which I really like. And I can also still go ahead and unlink, remove the link if I want to. Okay. In that same instance, we also have where you can mask. So I can cut part of this image off, kind of like cropping. It doesn't have exactly the same, it's pretty much the same. I hit mask, and now I can choose which part I want to see of the frog. So maybe I just want that part, and then I only see that, which is nice as well. So just two tools that go with the images. If I add a new page in my gallery right here, so right below my pages, I'm going to hit on gallery, and if I type in widgets and hit search, if I click on this bottom area where it says interactive and multimedia, here's my die. So I can pull this out. It has settings. I can keep it as a traditional die. I can change it to text. I can put exactly what I want to have in here. So maybe I'm doing blends, so I just want like different blends, and I want kids to try and have to come up with probably not CR. Gotta work. You gotta think about your blend sometimes, like. So you can have different blends like that. Let's say we're done. So I can click it. Now when we click it, it'll flip around for them. So they do have control over adding different content, customizing it. They can change the colors of the background, all sorts of things like that. And then they still have that interactive piece. And then same with like the spinner. Again, you're going to choose the setting. You can add segments, however many you need. You can add the text, so names, whatever you want to have. So we do have those multimedia. There's a timer there. There's a clock there available as well. Then if you look in this other folder, there's interactive techniques. So the nice thing about the is they actually give directions. So if I want to say do a click to reveal, there's a tutorial that the teachers can watch. Basically, you're just making this box animated where when you click it, it fades away. But the teachers do have a little direction piece here, and you can watch the tutorial to help them understand how to have that interactive piece as well. And there's all different ones. There's color reveal, drag to target, if they're looking for those types of things as well. Just support them there. And then I want to go back because it made me think about that. So one of them was talking about like the random name generator. We do have access to that. So let me show you what that would look like. Yeah, so it just looks a little different on how you're setting it up. So if I click on Smart Lab, one of the things you're going to see is these lines right here to manage content. So if I click on those lines, here's the content I've already created. If I can create new content right here. So for instance, I could create a student list. So I could create my kinder list, or like for me, I had all different grade levels, or for middle school, if you have period 1, period 2, whatever. I'm just gonna put my kids' names. Okay, and so you can create that content and you can hit save. Okay, so now what I would want to do is I would just choose shout it out, because I'm not really doing a lab per se. I'm just getting to the name generator. So I don't even have to do anything with this. I'm just going to hit done, because I don't need to worry about that. Right here, I have this star. The randomizer is that hat. So if I click on it, and then I click on that hat, now I can choose to have it do my students. And now I can have them pulled out. I can also change that. So I know a lot of elementary teachers, for instance, give their students a particular number that's their number all year long. So if that's the case and you have 22 students, then you could do just numbers where it pulls out as well. So that's a way to get that generator still. You can customize your toolbar right here. So you just click on the customize toolbar. You can click and drag whichever tools are the most important to you, the ones that you use all the time, and you just drag them up. So like if I wanted to have access to clear ink, I'm going to click and drag it up. If I do this where it's a small square, it's going to make it half and half. If I want it to be big, I can do it where it has that full blue line and let go, and then it'll be full sized. If I do add-ons, that's going to go in this add-on area where that puzzle is. If I do tools like different pens or different lines that I like to use all the time, I'm going to pull it into where the toolbar is. Cloning the page, you're cloning the whole entire page and everything that's on it. If you're cloning like one thing, then you're just cloning that object. So for instance, if I'm building something and I want the same background, for instance, or something like that, then I can clone that page several times. The other thing is you can save that into your gallery too and have access to it there. But if, for instance, in this activity, I wanted to clone this square as an infinite cloner so that they could keep working to fill in this box. So right now it's just a square, but if I click down here, I can clone it, and now I have two, right? Or I can click on this square and I can do infinite cloner, which means it's never going to end. So those are kind of the differences between. And if I clone the page, this whole thing will be cloned. Like if I copy this, like just so you can see, like if I copy this file, copy, then I'd have to go paste it. Whereas if I just hit clone, it's right there. So that's kind of the difference. I can copy it, but then I'm going to have to right click and paste it, or Control V to paste it. So one of the other things with Notebook 17, so on our shapes, if I click on this, right now it's showing the vertices. I can hide the vertices by clicking on the down arrow. I can show the vertices or hide them. I can also show the interior angles. You can show the kids, for instance, this triangle still has 60-degree angles even though it's bigger than it was. You can also show that and hide the side lengths as well, which is nice. With the square and the circle, one of the added options is you can divide it. So if I can do divide shape, I can choose how many parts I want it. I can choose to show the fractions or not by clicking that check mark, and I can click OK. And then once you've divided it, you can actually separate all of your pieces, which is nice, and then put them back together, all of that, which is great. So the way that we did that was with the shape pen. You could do a circle too, but I could use the shape recognition pen, say on this, and I was having trouble. Let's see if I can draw my circle with the mouse. Doing better than I did last time. Okay, there. So it automatically turns it into the right shape. Now I can click on that shape, and I can divide it into fourths, because this is about fourths. So I can divide shape into fourths. And I could do the same thing for each of these pizzas, which would then allow me to find my answer here, which is great. And again, you can go to the shapes and you can pull them apart. and work with them that way as well, which is nice. Let's see. Okay, so this is linking. One of the options that I can do is for this pencil is I can actually link it to a tool. So if I click the down arrow, first of all, I'm going to, and it's linked right now to remove its link. Okay. So now I'm going to click this down arrow. One of the options is link to tool. And with link to tool, I can choose it, make it go to link to the pen tool. So every time you click it, it turns into a pen. And I could do the same thing, but to my eraser, I can choose link to tool, but make it the eraser. So now if I click here, I'm erasing. If I click here, I'm writing. Yes, for the little ones, it's really nice. So for instance, a way that, like we did that with writing collaboration. So right here, they can click on their pencil and start writing, click on their eraser and erase. So those are the linking tools. You can also link to, instead of to a tool, so if I click here, I can link this to another page. So I can click link, instead of linking to, I can link to a web page. So like with the hurricane, I might link to a News ELA article about hurricanes. But in this case, maybe my next, I want it to link to a particular page in my file. So I can click here, I can click which page and click OK. Oh, right now I don't like it to do this, so just so you know, you can, I like it to link the object, not the corner. So I'm just going to fix that. Right here, down here, it says launch by clicking on corner object. I want to by clicking on the object itself. So when I click, now it's going to take me to here. The way that I use that with students, so you can see the perspective, is I had the kids take a pre-assessment to see where they are on a unit. Then I divided the kids up based on that group. So when they are working on an assignment, so if this group clicks, they're going to end up here, versus this group might end up here, depending on where they are and what skills they need to work on in that area. So it's a way to differentiate, and the kids are working together and they don't know why they're going to which page, and it's still about the same content as well. So that's just kind of how I use the link to page idea. Feature now that's part of your Smart Learning Suite is we have Smart Learning Suite Online, which allows teachers to create content, so they can create a whole notebook file and they can share it to students, and they can work on their iPads or their Chromebooks with the file itself. So, and they don't have to have notebook on. So let me show you quickly what that. So if I go to, for students, they're going to go to hellosmart.com. And actually for teachers, you can go to the same place, and I'll show you why. So if I was a student, I go to hellosmart.com, and it's going to look like this. Okay, so the kids just put in your same class ID. So you guys could put in the same class ID that I've already given you, and I'll let you look at so you can kind of see the perspective in a second. As a teacher, I can go ahead. It's technically a different login. Ours is for teachers at suite.smarttech.com, but you can just go here and then just delete student class, right? And then you're in the right place. So the teachers looks like this, and I'm going to sign in. So a teacher signs in with their regular account, so just their Google account, right? It says that you're just going to say it's a promo because everyone has access to it till January 31. But you guys have bought a license for Smart Learning Suite, so you actually will retain it all the way through your full license. So yours won't go away on the 31st. Because I have my account, I have not added any of these files. They're just here. So you can see, like, because I've downloaded Allen ISD so many times today, and I've modeled downloading it, what it looks like. So I have a bunch. I can get rid of those by clicking on them and trashing them. I'm not going to do that right now. But because this is attached to my account, every time I build something, it's going to show up here, right? So I actually probably need to clean out some of my stuff. As a teacher, I cannot build a notebook file in here. But I can play a notebook file for my students. And my students can access it and work on it at their own devices. But what I can do as a teacher is I can create an assessment and I can create a lab activity right within the online version. So you do have those two options there. So just to show you what it would look like for a student, my student would need to put in my code and they would hit next. You can have put their name in there. So this is the students, what the students are saying. So it's waiting for me to start the lesson. Okay, so as the teacher, if I click on this, it's going to open it for the student as well. So see, it's thinking about it for the student and for me. Slow right now. So I can go through each of the slides. I do have the options of writing and things like that on them. You can play the labs in here. So we can start the activity and I can actually do it. Oh, we get the sound. And the students are the same way. And start working. Now we're doubling up. So that's kind of what those two look like. If you wanted to share something in Canvas where the kids do not have Notebook on their computer, then you would want to be using SLS Online. So the kids would actually log in, put in the code. They go to hellosmart.com and put in their code, the teacher's code. And that's how they would have access to it. They'll see only the message that your teacher hasn't started the activity until the teacher actually physically starts the activity. Once in there, kids can go through the lessons on their own. There's just a few that are set up, the labs are set up to be more interactive, like the Shout It Out. So they would need to wait for a teacher to start the activity. But there's others like Game Show that the kids would just be able to do rank order, super sort, match them. All of those can just be done at the pace of the student.
By selecting the gear in the top right corner, you can choose from different add-ons to add to your toolbar at the top. Click and drag to add it to the toolbar. And then select Done. Thank you for taking the time to watch this Smart Notebook 17 training. If you have any questions or need any further guidance, please contact the Help Desk.